Kent's like freaking out there.
$45 on the YouTube stream left.
Hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts here. This is the OpenGOTO Community Live program. It's episode 17 on Friday. So happy Friday, everybody. This afternoon, we have, of course, Jerry Hubbell and Kent Marts, but we also have Robert Weiss joining us. So Robert's going to, after Jerry finishes part 2 of 2 of the Mark Slade Remote Observatory, he's going to show us some new images that he's made with his Explore Scientific rig, which is going to be a lot of fun. Joining us already here, we've got Ed Gunther, which is great. He says, I'll catch you later. It's graduation day. Okay. Well, happy graduation. Mbante from Cameroon is watching us. And James, the photographer, thanks for joining us again. Peter Bissema from Canada, thank you. And Ulla Drake from Wolfgang from Germany is joining us, and Bergman Scooter from South Louisiana. Thank you, Bergman, for showing up. So why don't we turn it over to Jerry, and let's pick up. Where did we leave off, Jerry? You were trying to take an image of the moon, right? Is that kind of where we were?
That's
and
right.
You found out Gary Palmer. Good to see you. Dusty Haskins.
I'm gonna share my desktop. And,
we were trying
to take a picture of the moon.
And he now claims that there were clouds. Okay.
Yeah, that's my story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And there's clouds today too, so we won't be able to see.
Well, we got that Sahara dust storm covering the whole United States, although it's not where you are, not yet.
Right. So can you see my desktop?
Yeah, I can. And we got Charles Peak from the Weather Channel's watching right now too. Very cool.
So I'm going to get the observatory started up real quick.
And as Charles said, he's from far, far away in Springdale, Arkansas.
Yeah, he can almost yell over here.
He might as well come on over and join us.
He might as well. Yeah, we're going to have Charles on this show at one point because we're talking about a project that we want to do with him. Charles is a very, very accomplished photographer. Has some amazing shots of weather and stuff, but he's interested in astronomy and astrophotography. So we're going to work together with him to get him making some deep sky images that he longs to do. So what's going on, Jerry?
So I'm getting the observatory started up. I've got the programs running, and I'm connecting up all the equipment to MaximDL. We went over that a little bit yesterday. I want to get to the point where we were at yesterday and talk a little bit about the operation of the system some more. So I don't know that we've got that much more to talk about. We can take questions, of course, and people are interested in what we're doing here. But so let me, I need to adjust the camera.
Why don't you quickly review what you did yesterday?
Yeah, I'll do that. Let me fix this.
And while you're doing that, hey everybody, share this on all your channels, like, subscribe, hit the bell, help spread the word about what we're doing to broaden this community.
And
So if
send
you see
money.
me looking, if you see me looking up, I'm looking up at my TV because I've got the YouTube feed on it. And it's looks like about 10, 15 seconds delayed, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
all
watch
right.
the delayed version. It'll mess you up.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start out with POTH. Okay. With the PMC-8, we want to be able to share the information from our mount system with a bunch of different clients. And typically it's people use Carte de Ciel as a planetarium or Stellarium as a planetarium, and you want to be able to connect to the mount with that. You also might want to use Sequence Generator Pro and also PhD2 guiding to interface to get data from the mount. So in order to do that, you can either connect to the mount directly from a client, which precludes you from connecting any other client to the mount, or you can connect. Right now, currently, we suggest you use POTH, which is down here in the lower left-hand corner that you see right here. And I'll just quickly go to the setup. So in the POTH, if you can see here, we connect directly to the PMC-8 with the POTH, okay? And we configure the settings with the ASCOM chooser. We select the driver with the chooser, and then we bring up the setup, and it brings up our dialog form to configure the driver. You've got the communications settings, either wireless or serial, and we're using serial wired connection at the observatory. And then we've got the information for the observatory, the location, latitude, longitude, and that kind of stuff. So there's a couple of other miscellaneous systems that I'll go over here in a minute, and one of the important things is time, and I'll show you that. That's kind of special. So once you've got the driver set up, then you can make the connection to the POTH, and as I have here, you can see right now we're still in the park position, near the park position, but we're not parked. We're pointing at the North Celestial Pole. So if you look at and I talked about this, our local horizon isn't the best, so that's what this brown stuff is on the star chart. You can see the stars here in the middle, but all this brown stuff is our local horizon. And you can see right now, right down here where the white circle is, that's where the telescope is pointing at the North Celestial Pole. All right. So right now I'm going to go ahead and slew the telescope to Epsilon Leo. I'm going to center on that. And then I'm going to slew the telescope to that star, where it plots the star to be. So, of course, we won't be able to see it. So now you can see the telescope moving in the video. And I selected an object that's on the western side of the meridian. So to look at the dome, I've got to slave the dome. So at this diagram shows the telescope moving to the position. North is up. So the camera is down here looking towards the telescope. If you look at the webcam, and you can see the slit is towards the camera. So that's what you're seeing right here. So if you look at the dome diagram, you can see this is where the camera's at, looking up towards the telescope. Now I'm going to go ahead and slave the dome to the telescope where it's pointing at, and you'll see in the webcam that it'll start turning. And you can see also here on the diagram that it's turning. And it calculates the position because the telescope is offset from the center of the dome. It calculates the the positions needed to point the telescope through the slit, because it knows about the offset from the center of the dome where the telescope is.
Why is there an offset, Jerry? Wouldn't it make sense to be dead center?
Well, yeah, if you had if your telescope were to position dead center, like on an Altaz or maybe even a fork mount, is closer to the center, but on an equatorial mount, you can see here that it's off to the side of the pier. It's offset.
This is a common mistake that people make when they're building observatories. They'll have an architect that makes, puts down the slab. They'll put down a separate foundation for the telescope, and they'll have the observatory all set up, and they'll say, "Okay, install the instrument." And you notice that you can't aim straight overhead because you're aiming at the top of the curve of the dome because it's not offset. Okay. And this is a mistake that I've seen universities make. One university had to completely dismantle their building, okay, because they didn't want to dismantle the telescope, and they moved the whole building over so that they could get the telescope aimed straight up. But it's a very expensive mistake that a lot of people make in putting together their observatories. So
yeah,
the bigger
I don't
you
know
go,
if you
the more
just noticed
expensive
here,
the mistakes get.
my connection died on my remote Tight VNC is a program I use. The connection died. I had to relog in, and you can see it came right back to where
It came
I
right
was.
back. I see.
And so that's where we point the telescope, and you can see it's right there. I'm going to track telescope. Now, right now, I've got it set to the Altaz coordinate system, so I'm going to change this to equatorial on Carte de Ciel. So Carte de Ciel is the same way. It's another client. It's like Maxim DL. So the first thing we connected to the POTH, once we get it configured, is Maxim DL, and we'll go here, and you'll see that on the telescope, it's connected, and the driver is selected as the POTH hub ASCOM connection, not Explore Scientific's PMC-8. So that's a client. Maxim DL is a client. Let me go to the Carte de Ciel, and I'll show you.
Now, Robert, you're watching all of this right now. How, when you're working with a beginner, I mean, how hard is this for a beginner that knows zero about this, and they're starting off, putting their system together? What do you recommend? Is it they just start off with like one piece of software, master it, and move on, or what do you recommend here?
Well, it all depends on the individual. If they're tech savvy, they can usually pick up on the software packages pretty quick. But somebody that has no skills whatsoever in it, we'll start off with something simple. For instance, if we're going to start off with the automation of the telescope through the planetarium software, we'll start off with a simple program like the one that I prefer to use is that SkyTech X, because it's free, but it's so simple to set up, so simple to use. It connects directly to the scope or through the ASCOM without having to do a lot of programming for it or setting things up. It's not like some of these packages where you have to set up every little detail in order to make something work. It just connects to it, it runs, you tell it to do something, it just does that. So it's small programs like that, the free stuff, get started in, things that anybody could learn how to use for image capture and stuff. Maybe just software that comes with their camera that we might use. Canon cameras come with the Canon program package that they can plug in with the USB cable and control the shutter exposure, the time and all that through that program without having to go into expensive software to be able to do other things.
Sure.
So we just look at, we find out if I have somebody calls me up and says, hey, how do I get started in this? I'll ask them several questions. What type of equipment do you have? What type of camera do you have? How tech savvy are you? Do you understand how the features of this camera work and so forth? And then we start from the ground up. And a lot of times they'll advance faster that way than if they were just to go in full force, buy all this stuff, and then
Yeah,
spend
buy
the
it
next year
and then
trying to
just
figure it out.
yeah, because you get kind of frozen, I think, a little bit.
Well, it's a lot of work. It's pretty overwhelming when you first start.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to buy their way to success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't. It's I started out. Yeah, I was blessed to have an instructor that taught me how to use the 8-inch McCasker and how to print and develop black and white film and all that. But it's taken me up until now. I'm in my early 40s. It's taken me from when I was 8 years old,
right?
Till now, just to get where I am, because I was that one that wanted to buy into success. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I finally just had to settle and say, no, I need to start with the most important thing was buying the mount first. We've discussed this before and some of the others, that the mount is one of the most important things you can have, because you could have the most expensive telescope in the world, but if you have the flimsiest mount and tripod, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
So start with your mount, you work your way up from there, and then depending on whether it's wide field or getting into deep sky objects, up close and personal with the galaxies, you start just adding those pieces together until you get set for something that you want. And it's taken me years to get to where I'm absolutely excited to be where I'm at. And I've got the type of equipment that I like to use. It's simple, it's easy, but it covers all the fields of view that I like for what I do. And that's great. So.
And are you largely self-taught, except for your boost when you were taught as a kid?
Yes. I've my mentor, Ralph Williston, used to live in my own hometown. He was a science teacher there. He started me off when I was young, and within a year I knew more about it than he did, because I had advanced. I'd spent the time sitting in, sub-freezing temperatures in the snow, wondering if I'm ever going to get up and walk again. And but learning that, I was so into it. I loved it so much that I would take the time to learn how to do it, no matter what the cost was. So,
right.
But yeah.
Yeah, so there is some dedication involved. I want to give a shout out for Kent Marts right now, because I get like these pop-ups whenever anything happens, review-wise with our company. And I just got a pop-up from the Better Business Bureau, and this just came in from a guy named Mark McCarty, okay? He said, Kent has been wonderful to work with. I am a complete beginner to telescopes, and he very patiently assisted me with my purchase. I cannot say enough good things about the service you'll get if you purchase from this company. Fantastic experience. Good job, Kent.
Way to go, Kent.
Yeah, good job.
Yep. All right.
That's somewhat embarrassing. Thank you, Mark.
But very well deserved. Customers love him. All right. So, take it back. Are you getting some dropouts on your?
Yeah, it's dropped out 3 times now.
Okay.
Where it didn't drop out at all yesterday. I don't know what. It could be something going on at the observatory. I don't think it's my. It's not my connection, because we haven't had the Skype drop out on me or anything like that.
That's true.
So
that's true.
it might be local at the observatory.
Maybe
we
the dust storm.
Huh?
Maybe the dust storm has reached the observatory.
Yeah, maybe. We do have. We've set up 2 network systems to access the observatory. We have the wired Ethernet connection. We actually run Ethernet over power line from Myron's house to the observatory buildings, and then we have Ethernet network, high speed, and then we have a wireless. We can also connect wirelessly to the computer system if the Ethernet goes down. So if this drops again, I may go to the alternate connection and connect up to the wireless to see if that's any better. I don't know why it would be better, but you never know why it's dropping out. This is the first time I've had this happen in a while. So anyway, so what I was talking about is on the Carte de Ciel is an ASCOM client also, which means as on the Maxim, we connect to the POTH telescope, which is our hub, which is I called her our waitress yesterday to serve us, serve the clients.
The fry cook, yeah.
Yeah, so ASCOM takes commands from each of the clients and goes to the chef or to the PMC-8 and says, hey, I want to do this, I want you to do that. And then PMC-Eight says, sure, right away, and then returns it back. So that's how that works. I wanted to talk about our time system. I didn't get into that yesterday. We've got a pretty nice time standard on the observatory. And it's called. We've got it. First of all, we got a GPS receiver for our time. Okay. And if I can get it to come up here. Oh, there it is. And we've got this program called Nmea Time. And you can see it's locked on to the GPS receiver. Here's the GPS status. So you can see all the satellites that we have in view, and it's got calculates our position. But we just use it mainly for a time standard because we only have to enter this position once in the observatory, and it's there. We don't, So that's why. But in terms of time, let me show you this. So one thing to look at here, see what that says, estimated time error?
Yeah.
See what it says? 3 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's pretty tight.
That's laboratory standard type time reference,
You can't get it down to 0, huh?
Well, 1 sigma is one millisecond right now. And let me show you how it does. It's got a control loop. Okay, you see that?
Let's see this.
It's controlling the time continuously.
So what is this showing? I mean, what does that mean when you have 3 millisecond time lag?
It's not lag, it's error.
Between what and what?
Between a GPS satellite and your PC clock and the observatory computer clock.
Okay.
The difference between the GPS time standard, which is basically an atomic clock, and what the computer has is that's the error, 3 milliseconds.
So that means your guiding's off by 5 arc seconds, or
no? It has nothing to do with guiding.
Okay.
This is time reference when we're taking images, and we want to be very accurate with. So if you're doing minor planet imaging, the requirement is to be within 1 second or better. But since this is inexpensive to provide a GPS clock in the observatory computer, I went ahead and did that. You don't have to use this. You could use basically a time standard on the internet with a program called Dimension 4 is one example of a program to set your clock off the internet time servers, and that'll be plenty good. But I just thought it was cool to have this reference without having the internet connection. We maintain our time reference separately with our receiver.
Does this also come into play in your measuring trends of planets?
Yeah, so one of the major things we use it for is a GPS clock for doing occultations. Typically in occultations, you want to be as fine a resolution as you can get, fine a precision, I should say. And typically when you're doing occultations, you're using video, and they use a frame rate is typically 30 frames per second. They use a frame counter to do time references, but now we can use a GPS clock to do time reference on occultations to that level or better also. But also for exoplanet timing, your imaging is what limits your time resolution anyway, however many minutes each image is. So we usually go from 3 to 1 minute, 1 to 3 minutes exposure times when we're doing exoplanet measurements for midpoint time on the transit. So that gives you a precision of around 1 minute if you're doing 1 minute images, which is, you're not required. Although, as close as you can get is better, but
sure.
But this is fine.
Well, time is important to astronomers, that's for sure, especially if you discover something.
Right. So I just like to having this reference here. You can see the time error now is down to around 1 millisecond or less. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
What else do we have? We've got a thing called a web power switch that we can power all the observatory up. I think I talked a little bit about that. We've got
You did?
the digital dome works dome controller system, which you can see up here on the wall where my cursor is. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? That's pretty much it. Maxim is our main observatory control program, and we do have a weather station. I'm not connected to it. It's not working right now. It's a Davis weather station. It's really old. It's about 20 years old.
Well, we know a company that's getting ready to be able to sell you a new weather station.
Well, that's what I talked to
That's right.
Scott about. I've talked to Scott about taking one of our advanced weather systems and making building an ASCOM driver for it.
That other company would, of course, be us, So, yeah, we have this whole line of weather stations that will be eventually rolling in. So, real excited about having those,
What's the arrival time, Scott, on those?
They're behind right now because of COVID. So the pandemic speed bump has really made it tough to roll out this new product line. But I would say this fall.
And one thing.
Go ahead.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes. We hear you.
I went silent, or it seemed like it went silent for a minute on me. I don't know if the network dropped out for a second. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate a peer flip. I'm going to center on a star, Beta Leo. On the other side of the meridian, I'm going to slew to it. So I'm going to center on it, and I'm going to hit slew. And then you can see it in the camera. And what it'll do is it'll go past through the north celestial pole. You can see that it's swinging the deck axis and the RA axis to the opposite side so that it points east. And then what you'll see after that on the dome after it gets done when it gets to the target, the dome will then start to swing itself around to recenter, to make the slit centered over the telescope again. So it's slewing. The fastest rate right now, the PMC-8 systems are designed to slew at about 3.5 degrees per second is the fastest slew rate. The fastest precision tracking rate, which is independent of the slew, is trying to think. I calculated that before. It's like 1/2 to 3/4 of a degree per second is the fastest it can do a precision tracking.
What do you mean by precision tracking?
So in a slew, if you slew to a slow rate, let's say if you're in a standard slew, you can go up to 3.5 degrees per second. It's using the biggest steps on the stepper motor. Okay.
Okay.
It's big chunks of steps. Okay. So the slowest you can slew at a regular slew rate, it's real choppy. Okay. Let's say we only wanted to follow an object and it's going like 0.2 degrees per second or 0.1 degrees per second. All right. As you follow that object at that rate, if you're at a slew rate instead of a precision tracking rate, you're going to see little jumps. You're going to see the jumps and the steps because you're taking the biggest bite out of on each step because you're in a slew.
Move that quickly.
You're in a slew configuration.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it's better to do at a tracking high rate tracking where you have the fine precision steps, the micro steps, while you're doing the tracking, but you're stepping at a high rate is what you're doing, even though you're doing the finest resolution on the stepper. So it's a nice smooth tracking rate, even though it's a higher speed.
Understood. Charles Peak says thank you for the shout out. I look forward to learning more about deep sky imaging. Gary Palmer says, you're young, plenty of time. Steve
Right.
Collingwood says, you're not Gary Palmer. James,
Oh.
the astrophotographer. Kent is awesome. He deserves a raise. That's right. A promotion.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Scope, Ula Drake says, my first scope is from 1980 or 82. An SCT from Bosch and Lomb, model 4040. Oh, the model 4000. I remember that. It was similar to the Meade 1000 from that time. For that, I purchased, or I bought the IXOS 100, and then I bought the Apo that I use now.
I'm going to do some research because I thought that had been taken care of because he was missing some parts.
Yeah.
And they were working. Well, no, because they were going to ship it to him. I mean, it was
just from that.
Yeah, you'd have to talk to Mike, because Mike and Alex, because they were working on that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Kent?
That's the best I can do. Yeah.
Okay.
My connection dropped out again. I tried going to the wireless, but the wireless wasn't available for some reason.
Maybe you guys had a lightning strike or something.
I don't know. I'm looking at it right now. You can see I'm pulling up the network stuff. So it says it's open.
That's another question I have for you, Jerry. You build your observatory and stuff. This thing that you have is like a miniature tower. I would imagine you have. I know you have thunderstorms over there. I've looked at your weather system out there. How do you guys handle lightning?
So when we have a storm coming, basically, damn, this thing's blocking out. The Myron, typically we shut the power off basically, and we can connect the observatory from the power system. Basically, is what we do. I think I may have.
I see. Do you have light? Do you have a lightning rod or anything like that on the observatory building?
We have. So what we have lightning protection and a UPS for battery backup.
Yeah.
It goes through that. So our power system goes through that to protect the system.
Because I have heard of observatories just being, all the computers, the telescope, everything blowing up, from a lightning strike. So.
Right.
So that's something else that you want to consider if you're building.
Yeah, that's a power system is an important part of the observatory.
Yes.
So we got the web power switch, which has lightning protection in it, and then that's plugged into the UPS. That's fed from a battery, and then the power comes into there. It's also got lightning protection there. So we don't have any specific lightning protection on our network. We could add some lightning protection on our network switches. That type of thing. But that's a little more expensive to do.
Sure.
On the Ethernet cables.
Is the telescope grounded?
Yes, through the power system.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm not sure what else I can show you. Let me bring up a picture. So if you're interested, that's not the one I.
That's still pretty.
Yeah, I wonder why that went away. It seems like, this live stuff always jinxes you when you're trying to do stuff.
It's your network connection.
Well, this was on my local machine. I was trying to bring up my directory.
It's still your network connection.
Yeah, right. It's still my network connection. So I wanted to show this picture of the book I wrote for remote observatories.
Right.
It's available on Amazon, and this is the second book I was involved with. I was the co-author on it, and with Richard Williams, who owns the Sierra Stars Observatory Network. Oh, this thing keeps dropping out. I don't know why. Maybe there's there's no storms or anything around.
No, I looked at the radar, and you're clear skies as far as storms.
I don't know if there's something going on with the network over there. I think I might have to just go ahead and if I can get on here and shut the system down so I don't get locked out.
Maybe network is haunted. That's
Yeah.
Squirrels.
a good explanation for things.
It's been a while since this has happened. So I'm going to demonstrate shutting it down.
Okay.
Nope, it locked up again. This time Maxim locked up. And my Type VNC again.
Yep. And if you disappear, we'll know you locked up.
Yeah, right.
Right?
So you might want to go ahead and go on with Robert while I try to shut this thing down.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I can maintain my connection.
Okay. Well, Robert, you're on. I guess you can stop sharing your screen, Jerry.
Right.
And,
yep. Let me do that.
We'll let Robert pull up his. Yeah.
Oh, he took it. He took a hold of it, didn't he?
Yeah, I see.
Stole it from you.
He did.
Yeah, that's good.
He did. So, Robert, let's give a little bit of background on yourself. You've been on with us. You've been on with us several times. Actually, you've done several shows with us. You went to the Arizona Dark Sky Star Party. You were the astronomy professor there during giving classes, and astrophotography, giving astrophotography classes. You had a lot of beginners there trying to understand all the pieces and parts and all the things that you guys do. You don't have a permanent observatory at this time, do you?
That is correct. Where I live in a small town outside of Joplin, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have room to put an observatory in. I got trees in the backyard, neighbors' houses, so I have to roll my equipment out from the garage, out to the driveway, and then pack it all back in at the end of the night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you just have your tripods on dollies, or how do you do that?
Yep, I got a friend of mine built a custom-made dolly for it, so I just put that Lost Mandy on it, and I can just roll it out, set it down, and it takes probably 5 or 6 minutes to have it ready to go, and another couple of minutes to polar alignment, and then I'm off.
So that's very similar to how Chuck Ayub has his setups. He's got 4 rigs, just rolls them in and out of the garage, and he has kind of marked off spaces where he puts his legs. Of course, the latitude is already dialed in, so his polar alignment goes pretty quick for him, because he's just kind of repositioning the tripod. Maybe he has to make a small tweak now and again. If he gets lucky, then he just nails it when he puts it outside. So that's a good way to go. And how many rigs are you currently running?
The one that we have, let's see, trying to think. Like I said, we've gone through so many different scopes and trying to figure out the right size and this and that, and before we finally settled on the 102s. Mm-hmm. But we have 3 different rigs currently that we can use. We have 3 different mounts: the Lost Mandy G11 with the PMC-8, an Orion Atlas, and an Ioptron IEQ-45, and then we can put different equipment on them. But we've started shrinking things down because it gets to the point where you're like, well, what should I do this? Should I do that? And it just comes down to the point you spend more time arguing over which scope you want to set up and do, and then you get it all set up and find out, no, that's not what I really wanted to do. So it's like, okay, just get rid of it and stuff. So started offloading some gear. So I've settled down to the G11 with your FCD 100, the 102 triplet, and have that both in the steel tube and the carbon fiber.
Great.
And you had an astrograph at one point.
Yes, did the test on that 208 carbon fiber astrograph, and that was a lot of fun and stuff. But got down to the point, like I said, I like that 102. It's about the prime mid-range for a lot of things I want to do. Good focal ratio and everything. So.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I can say about Robert is he does a lot of testing. Not only he's done testing for us, but he does it for Optolong and several other companies. So he's a great guy to give equipment to do some of this testing, because he really puts it through its paces and gives a great review on the product. So that helps a lot.
It's nice for us. It's nice for us because he's 45 minutes away.
Oh, that's
So,
also true. That's also
yeah,
true.
we can run something up quick if we need something done quick,
That's
which
true.
I've done numerous times.
Right. Yeah, and to have someone of Robert's caliber doing that is really great. Manufacturers often use people that can do the field testing. It's similar to like, Shelby building his next car. He needs a great driver to run through its paces, and telescope makers need a great astrophotographer or a great visual observer to really see what the extreme ends of it can be. So, but okay, so Robert, you've been getting some clear skies recently, which we really haven't had a lot of over the last
No.
few months, right? But
No, it's been a hit and miss, and it's always the bane of astronomers' existence. If it is clear outside, you got a full moon. If not, it's hailing on you or storming in some way or another, and it's like, you always wonder, should I just stay as a deep sky imager, or should I just go to lunar and planetary imaging?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's always clear for them. So,
Right.
but no, it's just one of those
Maybe if
things.
you had
It's
a
like,
rig
well, there's
for
a moon
each,
coming in,
then-
and you're like, oh.
Yeah, if you had a rig for each, it would somehow equal out. I don't know. Then it would just be cloudy
Yeah,
all the time, I
yeah.
guess. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. It'd be like, and then you'd sell everything because you can't do anything. Then it just clear off again. It's like, well, maybe I'll go into macro imaging or something like that.
That's the biggest thing I found when I was first writing my book, and when I first got into astrophotography, was patience was the biggest thing.
yeah,
That you learned as an astronomer.
that's true.
Yeah, that's one of the things. And a lot of folks, when they jump into it, they want that instant gratification, kind of like an Instamatic camera. Take the picture, and boop, there it pops out, and there you go. What they don't realize is that it takes hours upon hours, and sometimes days, weeks, and months to get that one photograph that makes everybody go, ooh, and you're like, yep, still looks like junk to me. Start all over, throw all that data away, and pull up something new. So
That's the hole in one machine that Scott often talks about.
Yeah,
That's the holy grail.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of astrophotographers want so much automation in their telescopes, and I call them I call them hole-in-one machines. When I was at Meade Instruments, they kept telling me that the way to get more people into this is just to make it polar alignment or alignment and everything about the telescope so automatic that they can just go through a list of objects and see them and ooh and ah at the eyepiece. And, that's great. But to me, that's my hole-in-one machine. The hole-in-one machine is that you want to take me golfing, and I don't know how to golf. So I get on Amazon and I buy the hole-in-one machine, okay? I meet you out at the golf course on Saturday morning, and you tee off, and, and then you let me tee off. But I just come back with this box, drop in my golf ball. It tees off and makes a hole-in-one, okay? Right?
yeah.
And you're amazed, okay? And you go, well, there's no way that box can do it again. So we go out to the second hole, boom, hole-in-one. We do 18 holes. I get 18 hole-in-ones, okay? If for some reason I don't position the box just right, maybe it misses, okay? But once I've mastered the box, then I'm good, okay? But you don't call me a golfer afterwards. You're just amazed at the hole-in-one machine. You probably make me buy all the drinks later, okay? Maybe 18
you
rounds.
You can afford that
drinks.
machine, you can buy the drinks.
Right? But I'm not a golfer, and I haven't learned how to golf, okay? So I think that part of this exercise of being an astronomer or an astrophotographer is working through some of the problems, pushing the envelope, okay, engaging with the gear, engaging with the sky, and learning some of this stuff, because at that point you have learned something. You have you're expanded your knowledge of the universe in a way that's been done since astronomy started. So I always encourage people at one point to turn off all the electronics at one time and see if they can find stuff in the sky.
Yep.
Some people can't do that.
We just had a couple in the store that upgraded a telescope and showed her the PMC-8 system. And she met with a MSRO one at Altaz because she said she really was thrilled by the hunt and didn't want to go to. And so she left with a Mac Has on a Altaz, excited as could be.
Yeah. But there's another kind of hunt, and this is the hunt to image the invisible and to image detail that you can't visually see. Even through some of the largest observatory telescopes on the planet. Okay, you can't. The biggest scope I have ever used to date is the Palomar 200-inch visually. Okay, it didn't look that good visually. We did not have very good seeing conditions, what astrophotographers are able to do, especially amateur astrophotographers, because they can spend the time, they can really wrench out every last ounce of performance out of their equipment. They have gone through the thought process and the whole process of building their imaging system that you outlined in your book, Scientific Imaging, your first book, Jerry. So let's turn this back over to Robert. You've got your system that you've now settled on is ED102, the FCD100, I believe, and
That's correct.
Right, and you're on a
Yes.
G11 Losmandy mount, PMC-8. What other kind of gear do you have on your scope?
I currently have two different cameras set up. I have the SBIG STF 8300 monochrome with a QHY CCD3 filter wheel with 36 millimeter filters in the LRGB as well as the narrowband filters. I also have an ASI 294 one-shot color camera that I use along with a couple of other filters, the Optilong L Pro and the Optilong L Enhanced filter, depending on whether I want to shoot narrowband or standard RGB through that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've got some fresh images, kind of hot off the plate here. What are we going to look at first?
Well, during the week, I actually had a chance to do both up close and personal with the 102 on a lot of objects, but I also used a Canon camera lens mounted to the 294 to do some wide field, because when you look at the night sky, there's a lot of objects that if you use a telescope, you're too close, so you kind of have to go through and use that. So one of the items that is kind of neat is the IC 1396 region, which is the elephant's trunk. And a lot of people, when they take a picture of this object, it's actually zoomed in so you can see the elephant trunk, but you don't get the rest of the nebula. So what I've done is I've used a wide field lens. I think it's a 105 millimeter f2 lens, and I've taken the entire region here so that you can see all that nebulosity, the dark lanes, and everything else. Mm-hmm. And you can see the elephant's trunk right here, which is just a small portion of that larger nebula complex.
I see. Wow, that's really nice.
Robert, what does that look like visually?
Can't see it visually. It's faint. It's extremely dark. You can't see it. Maybe with the right type of sky conditions and stuff. I live in a Bortle 5-6 area, so visual objects, it's out.
So Edwin Sanchez has a question for you. He says, I currently use a DSLR. I've been using and really doing astrophotography for only 3 or 4 months. When will I know, or how will I know that I'm ready to spend the extra money and move to a dedicated cooled camera?
That's a lot of questions. They're like a lot of folks want to jump into that. It's always been said that if you're comfortable with the equipment you want to use, a lot of people still use the digital SLRs. In fact, I still have the digital SLRs that I can use because they're great for a grab and go, whether it's daylight photography or nighttime photography. When you decide to move into it is when you want to cool that camera down, and you want to be able to take steady temperature pics, especially for dark frame calibration and so forth. You want to be able to take those exposure times with the same temperatures as what your light exposures are. So when you get to that point where you want to advance a little bit further and actually start cooling the camera to keep the regulated temperature for those images, whether it's the lights, darks, flats, and so forth, then you'll move into that for that cooling system.
Sure.
The way I look at that, Scott, I write about it in my book also, is that your goal is to push the limits of your equipment. And when you've got, and you'll know it, once you've got the skills and knowledge and you're used to that equipment, you'll see that you're not getting any better pictures. And you'll say, it's not because of me, it's because of the equipment.
Right.
So that's when you'll know to move
limited by
on.
the equipment. Right. Right.
So Edwin also asked a question a little bit further down. Can you explain the broadband and narrow? Don't understand that.
The broadband would be considered what you have for just standard RGB colors. It picks up all the light coming in, including light pollution from the lights down the street, those fluorescent lights, incandescent lights, any other type of light pollution that may come in. When you get into the narrow band, what it's specifically talking about is that those filters are designed to pick up just a certain small frequency of a light. And typically it's going to be the hydrogen alpha, the S2 or the sulfur frequency, and the O3 or the oxygen molecule. And you get those three filters and you start focusing in on those small slices of light, which eliminates light pollution in most instances. And you end up getting those nice little, what they call the Hubbell palette, which everybody's seen, the Hubbell telescope, those pretty greens, the teals, the golds and colors and stuff like that. And it's because they're using those hydrogen alpha filters, the sulfur filters, and the oxygen 3 filters to just focus in on certain things. So when somebody says they're doing broadband, it's basically the camera's wide open, they're capturing all that light that's coming in, they create a red, green, blue picture and get your full color. And then you'll hear somebody say, I'm doing narrow band, which means that they're just focusing in on certain frequencies of light. And most of your objects, especially nebula, have what they call narrow band frequencies, such as the hydrogen alpha, the O3, and the S2. And that's where you get those pretty colors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And these narrow bands are, just a few angstroms instead of, from 400 to 750 nanometers. It's like 5 nanometers wide, so it's a very tiny slice of the image. And so in that regard, I look at it like imaging with film in the film days, because the efficiency of the cameras are really high, but you're not letting much light in at all, where it's just like in film days when the film was only like 2% efficient in collecting the photons, where today we're up around 80 to 90% for a back illuminated CCD camera or CMOS camera.
Yep. And Edwin also says, okay, I heard about modified cameras, but I think I will try first that Optolong L-Enhance filter. And you've been testing that filter, is that right, Robert?
That is correct. As part of the beta testers for Optolong and stuff, they ship me new equipment to test a lot of filters and stuff that I have for either the CCD or the CMOS cameras. Now they're into the digital SLRs, and so they just sent me a new L-enhanced clip-in filter to allow your digital SLR to capture the 3 bands of hydrogen alpha, hydrogen beta, and the O3. So it's a semi-narrow band frequencies, but when you combine those, you get a semi-natural color off of it. But it's nice about that L-Enhance that it blocks out the light pollution. You do have to increase your exposure time quite significantly, though, because it is a narrow band filter.
Charles Peak wants to know where can he buy one of those hole-in-one Astro machines? They're out
Scott,
there.
I think you sell those, right?
Almost.
Almost. Here's the hole-in-two machine.
I stopped
Scott
short
keeps
of that
pushing me.
because I want people to learn just a little bit more about the sky, So we have, for example, when we were collaborating on Explore Stars, we put up constellations in the display and showed them where that star was in the constellation, because we wanted them to at least learn constellations and not just have a line item that says you're going after Sirius, okay, and you just watch the scope slew over to this star. But you know, if it's a dark night, man, even Sirius can get lost in the sky. You know, so it's so we wanted people to start to understand the sky a little bit. Okay, so what's up next here? What's this next image?
This next one is the Cocoon Nebula. It's IC 5146. It's a really interesting object, just kind of north of Cygnus. There's this little nebulosity right here, and then it has this nice, beautiful dark lane that comes out of it. I wished I kind of rotated the camera around to get that full length of it. But it's kind of a hard object to capture, but it is really impressive because of that dark lane. It's just that dark lane goes up and surrounds that little Cocoon Nebula and then trails off out in space.
Is that a scratch on your negative?
No, that is
on your negative
satellite image.
He doesn't have a negative.
It's a digital negative, Kent. Digital negative. So, but yeah, no, that is actually a satellite image. And when I processed, I used the average combine on it instead of the medium to eliminate that.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice it. Okay.
Yep. Every once in a while, with astro imaging, you get an airplane that goes through. You'll get a satellite. You'll get a meteor streak. Just a lot of other oddities that come through. And with the image capture software where they have, you take multiple images and then you can take them into a program and stack them. And depending on the information that you use to stack it with, you can actually eliminate those oddities and stuff, such as the satellite, the airplane, and so forth.
Great.
So anybody under about 20 has no idea what a scratch on a negative means.
Yeah, it's the world's worst fear, especially if you have to turn that in for a college assignment.
Yes.
Okay. I've been there, done that many a times, and it's one of those learning processes. And so, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Scratches on negatives are bad.
Hey, Robert, how do you decide how you're going to frame your negatives? Because your camera's right there, so you can go out and rotate it. Jerry's is locked, and it is just what it is. But you can rotate it. How do you decide how you're going to frame it up?
Well, what I will actually do is that I will actually go out and take a picture of the night sky and do a plate solve. And then when I go into Sequence Generator Pro and do the mosaic feature, it'll rotate that frame of view to match how my camera sensor is. So then I can decide whether I need to actually rotate the camera or leave it the same way. You eventually get to the point where you can memorize that chip, the orientation of that chip when you put it into the scope, so that for, let's say, Orion Nebula, it's got to be at XYZ location, so you can rotate it to that position, at least get it close, you know, whether it's a 45-degree angle from center or 90 degrees up or 90 degrees to the left. And you just kind of get used to where that sensor is, and then you just manually rotate it for the objects, lock it in place, and then you pretty much don't want to move it too much after that, because you do have to take flats for each of those positions. And if you don't get them right, then they don't work right. So. But they do have some new technology out there. They have auto rotators that you can add to it that will actually, you can actually just tell it to rotate to this position. If you don't like it, you just tell it to frame it the way you want it, and it'll actually move the camera into that position and lock it in place. So.
Okay. We got a couple more questions here. Dusty Haskins is wanting to know, what's the difference between the L Extreme and the L Enhanced Optolong filter?
Okay, the L Extreme, the new one, is only a dual band. It is hydrogen alpha O3 frequency only. The L Enhanced is a tri-band. It's hydrogen alpha, hydrogen beta, and O3.
I see.
So instead of, like in the L Enhanced, instead of taking 3 exposures, one set 5 minutes, 5-minute exposures for hydrogen alpha, 5 for O3, 5 for S2, you're getting all of that light in one exposure.
That is correct.
Right? So
that is correct.
You cut your exposure time by 2/3.
Yeah, in fact, all these images that I'm showing are taken with that L Enhanced filter.
That's with a one-shot color camera too.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we have here in this this image?
This this one is LBN, Lynn's Bright Nebula number 471, also known as Lion's Head. It is kind of faint. It's harder to see, but this object here kind of looks like a lion's head if you got darker skies and stuff. I needed more exposure time, but it was one of those. We did end up having some high atmospheric clouds pass through that night, but then they disappeared. It's one of those things. You'll get in the middle of an imaging session, you think everything's going good, and then your guider starts dinging at you like, hey, come and check this out. Something's not right. You get over there and you look up and can't see what it is, but then you look at the guide camera and yeah, there's high atmospheric clouds, really thin cirrus clouds moving through just enough to cause things to go awry, which makes your images soft. And so you have to call those out. And when you do start calling out pictures, then you start losing subframes, and now you have to increase your exposure time to catch up to those later. So
there's a fix for that. We offer a fix for that from Explore Scientific. It's called the Telescope Drive Master.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
I got to get one of those to test out on that lost banding.
Yes, you do.
It works great.
I know
we have it on ours.
I know with that. Yeah, I know with the guiding that I've got is, I'm down to 0.1, 0.12 on RA deck error, but I bet that TDM will probably drive it down even further.
Well, it's hard to imagine. That's pretty good tracking.
I would like to do, I can do 5-minute subs without tracking, but I'd like to go 10 minutes or longer and not have to worry about auto guiding and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, people don't realize your time is very important under imaging, and any piece of equipment that eats into your time is really painful. So people don't think it's worth the money, but it actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you value
when
your
we're
time.
limited. Yeah, especially when we're limited, because this night I went out to a friend's house. He has Bortle 3 skies. 20 minutes later, I'm back at home and I have Bortle 5, 6. So I drove out, stayed the night. We set up, and so I literally took 8 objects in that entire night, 1 hour setup, 6 by 10 minute subs, just because I don't know when it's going to be clear again. And I kind of wished I would have set up last night, because it ended up being really crystal clear and even better than the night that we had. So,
Where were you, Robert?
We were just actually south of Pittsburgh, Kansas, about 10 miles. And the light dome that we'd have, we couldn't see Pittsburgh's light dome at all. And we could see Joplin's light dome, but nothing else. But the sky was clear. You can see probably 6th or 7th magnitude or brighter out there in those skies compared to what I can see here, where I can see 3 or 4th magnitude objects with the naked eye. So,
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
Wolfgang in Germany asks, and by the way, it's past midnight, I think, in Germany right now. What software do you use to finish the pictures?
I use a couple of them. The primary one that I just started learning is PixInsight. But usually for single one-shot color cameras, I use Deep Sky Stacker to process and stack those images because it's faster, and I end up with a cleaner image out of it. And then I'll take it into PixInsight and run it through a couple of processes, maybe do some deconvolution on some things or adjust. And then depending on whether I like it, I might save it there, or I might go into Photoshop and maybe adjust color balances and stuff like that. So, but a lot of these images and stuff you could actually do with Deep Sky Stacker and use if you don't want to pay for Photoshop or PixInsight. You could download GIMP as a free photo editing program. And we've actually gone through that, Kent, and we had your Astronomy League went through that. And a lot of folks, right? They've never touched it. They've never done anything before. And I think in 10 or 15 minutes, they actually processed their very first image from get-go, from the very first start of capturing the images, processing them, take them into GIMP. And when they got done, they're like, wow, this is easy. So
you provided the data, and we had a couple of computers, and they sat down and did it on their own. It was with a little bit of guidance from you. It was very nice.
So I'm curious about something.
Yes.
I always throw these kinds of things out, and one of these days I'm going to live to regret it. But it would be really cool if we could set up a system and have a guest come on, a beginner, and let them take the controls of the telescope. Now, I know that we could do this with the with the MSRO. Okay. Is that something that you think that you'd be set up enough to do on your side there, Robert?
I've actually done it. Some friends of mine that live in Nebraska and other places, if they have really crappy skies like a lot of people get,
Yeah.
I'm like, look, you can log in. Here's the login. Log in and take over. Do what you want to. So they'll log in and they'll take pictures from my skies and then save the data to themselves. So yeah, there are times that we do set up and let others.
So we'll have
that I know come in
we'll
and-
have to get some people that want to participate in this, and it's probably better to do a one-on-one, I would imagine, just to kind of go through the process. But and of course, it's going to have to be nighttime because we'd be doing it live. But I'll stay up for
and
it.
clear skies.
Yeah, that's right. And
Gotta have
clear skies.
And unfortunately, here, in the great state of Missouri or central United States, it doesn't get dark until 9:30, almost 10 o'clock now.
Right.
So it's like, that's astronomers love the wintertime because it gets dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon. Then we have from 4:30 until 6 o'clock the next morning to image. Summer rolls around, we got like 5 or 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky by the time we roll around full summer to actually do some imaging. So you got to pick and choose your objects wisely, because you don't want to get halfway through the session and go, well, I really don't like this one. I should have been doing this. So
we'll have to think about how to manage that so we have them kind of pre-pick their objects, be able to be called at a moment's notice. Okay, hey, it's clear, and of course you have your own schedule. You're not retired. You're working. So, but
that's a big thing, is a planning process. There's I'm sure Robert goes through a lot of planning for his sessions, because your time's important while you're under the sky. You want to make sure that you know what you're doing.
That's true.
You don't waste any time hunting around for something.
Well, time management at the professional observatories is, a huge deal. So every minute on an observatory is a big deal. So.
What I actually do, since I use Sequence Generator Pro to do my image capture and do all that, I can actually go in and plan out an entire year's worth of data based on the dates, times, and all that, load it into a sequence and save it. So then when that time rolls around, I just tell it to go, and it runs through all those sequences for that night, and it's done. And so yeah, while I'm imaging something, I'll actually go through the star charts for the SkyTech X, load up the Hydrogen Alpha database for it, and look for all the objects that I want to do and just add it to that list, save it to that list, and then I can walk away knowing that that's going to be completed when the morning rolls around. So there's a lot of planning on the fly. There's a lot of planning 2 or 3 days in advance. But you know what happens when most astronomers plan for things? This weather rolls in and Mother Nature says, not tonight, my friends.
That's true.
Like,
you also have to plan for not shooting.
I think the best one I think the best night that I ever had was probably the funniest night. I got completely set up. Beautiful, pristine, clear skies. Wasn't supposed to rain, no clouds, nothing. I got set up, looked up, perfectly good skies, started to go, started to take the first picture, came out a white image. And I was like, what in the world is this? I looked up, clouds rolled in. I mean, like 400-mile-per-hour clouds just rolled in, and then they just stopped dead over where I was at, and we had whiteout for the rest of the night. And I was like, are you kidding me? My astronomy app for weather said it was going to be clear. The local news said it was clear, and I was like, well, apparently somebody's blind because it's not clear, So, yeah, there's those times you get completely set up and then look up and go, well, that was a waste of time, and then tear it all back down and put it back. So
put it all back. That's right. Let's do another question here. Charles Peak wants to know, how do you choose the white balance for an image?
The white balance stuff.
It's like flat field stuff, right?
Yeah, there's the interesting thing about astro imaging for white balancing is all user perspective. Art is subjective. Each person has their own idea of how they do it. Most often, a lot of astronomers actually look through the G2 main sequence stars, the color data, what our solar system, our star would be, and then they look for the star charts to kind of match that up. A lot of times what I'll do is that I'll just do a custom background balance on the background, and then I will adjust it to what I think is a natural color. And the next person down the road may say that's not natural enough, and they'll bump it up in color saturation and stuff. And you've seen them all. You've seen them from everything that's muted colors all the way to it looks like somebody put, lipstick on a pig, and it's bright colors. I mean, super saturation, oversaturated to the point your eyes are like gouging out of your. But it's one of those things, you know. It's
Tell us how
subjective.
you really feel. Tell us how you really feel.
Processed images are, some of them are neat, but at the same time, it's like, is that really what it looks like? You know, and it's just one of those things. Start from scratch and do it all over again to the point.
Yeah, we've had this conversation.
So,
Gary Palmer and I had a long conversation about what is real in an astrophotograph, you know, and what is real color and what is the real data.
The thing
it's all data that you've collected, you know, so.
Yeah, and the thing is, we don't know what the actual true colors are in space because they may be muted colors. I mean, they may be bright, vibrant colors, but all we can get is what the camera collects and how it's interpreted in that data. And then we have to adjust it how we think or feel it's going to be. A lot of colors that I've seen are absolutely muted colors. There's not a lot of data to them. But when you start using all these filters, start collecting the data, it's leaving certain things out. So we're going to get natural colors that we think is natural, just kind of like this M8, this Lagoon Nebula along with the Trifid. There's blues in there and there's reds in there. There's not a lot of other colors really. And one of the interesting things is there's not a lot of green in space, period. Most of it's the hydrogen alpha and the hydrogen betas and other sulfur stuff like that, but there's really no green in space. Now it's funny because people are like, well, I see green all the time. Well, that's because our eyes are adapted to that 500 nanometer green spectrum as regular light. The other spectrums, the blues and the reds, are too far off the spectrum for our eyes to see when we're looking into space at things. Unless the object gives off its own light, you don't see those colors.
The way I do lunar imaging is a little bit different since I typically process lunar images in monochrome, but what I like, since I was brought up in the film days, I like to process it, you know, when you do wavelet filtering to bring out all the details in a lunar image after you stacked it. It can be over-processed. You see the edges really harsh, but I like to make it look like film in the old film grain days. So that looks the most pleasing to me because you know the noise is there. You can't really get rid of it completely unless you have, you know, tens of thousands of frames to get rid of it, and it depends on your scope size and everything else. But to me, a nice lunar image has a tiny bit of grain in it that's noise, and it looks kind of like film. It's not over-processed. You don't have these harsh, you know, over-processed edges and all that.
Yeah, it looks like the craters is so sharp, you know, you could cut yourself on it if you were to rub your hand across it, you know, and the outer edges just look like crust on a pie that's burnt. Yeah, there's natural subtleties. It's either smooth or it's too sharp. There a lot of folks go one way or the other, and then you have the others that kind of fill in between where it looks natural, like you would actually see it through a telescope.
And that's hard to achieve.
Hey guys, I've got an event I've got to get to, so I'm going to bow out. It's great seeing everybody. Robert, it's good to see you.
Kent, good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everybody have a great weekend. I love doing this. This is an awesome interaction, and I really love seeing all the comments from the users and their comments and questions. They teach us stuff every day. So anyway, everybody have a great weekend. I'm going to close out. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Kent.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. All right. So let's look at this image up close here.
Yeah, this is one of the famous ones that everybody loves. M16 or the Eagle Nebula. Very bright, even visually, it's very stunning. If you get into darker skies and stuff, you can actually see that through the right type of conditions. Imaging, it's great. We can zoom in and kind of see those pillars of creation and stuff, so forth. But yeah, this was taken with the L-Enhance with the one-shot color and just an hour worth of data. So.
And how wide is the field of view?
I'd have to look and see. If I could actually rotate, if I would have rotated the camera, I would have gotten all the wings out to the left and right side of the frame view, but I had it rotated, so I cropped it. Ended up clipping off the edge of it and stuff. Pretty good size field of view. I would actually have to go in and plate solve it to see what the final was.
Directly, I'm not gonna put you on the spot there. But it looks pretty wide. Mike overact or I'll make a comment here or read off a comment. This is from Bergman Scooter. He says, "I'm 73 years old and I understand and believe in learning the night sky, but the newest generation, or I refer to them as the cell phone tablet generation, wants instant gratification. Therefore, they want go-to systems, auto everything." I think I believe they still want to control something. Okay. They marvel at the technology and everything. The problem is that when you make it completely, totally automatic, you're going to have, okay, you're going to run through maybe the whole Messier catalog of objects. You might go through and look at some of the other incredible things that are out there, but there's going to come a point where you felt like you've been there, done that, and you don't stay with it, so because you're not able, to turn the dial so much. And at one point or another, we all like to, I think we like to tweak it. So what image do we have coming up here now?
Well, I actually went into SkyTech X and brought up, I have 96.11 by 6510, I think it's arc minutes.
Okay.
So
96
that field of view is 96
yeah.
by 65. So that's the field of view that it would actually be for that camera and that 102.
I see.
Is that SkyTech X? Is that a free program, or do you have to buy it?
No, it is free. It's a freeware program. And like I said, it's simple. If you were to go to connect, you just click on ASCOM 6 and you can tell it to do it. Click go, and there it is. It's done. You're connected. Does everything you want it to.
The interface looks very much like Carte de Seal with the buttons, all those little icons.
Well, it does. That's true.
Yep, and the neat thing is that you can also go in. I didn't have it open over here, but
I like the overlays. It looks pretty cool.
That's the overlays. I can either do color, so you can kind of see the color data, or the one that I use the most is the red, so it brings in all the H alpha channels, so that no matter where you are in the sky, you see all that. Let it bring up. It takes a little bit of time because it does run off the net. It's actually downloading the DSO objects. But yeah, it's quite nice. There's a lot of objects in there, and the neat thing that I did find about it is that I can translate all of this data. So if I find an object that's not listed in the star charts, I can actually click on it and then import that into SGP, and SGP will just go right to it, plate solve it, and be centered on to wherever I click on the screen. So
very cool, very nice. Mike Overacker is asking. He says, "Is it H alpha, H beta, and O3, or is it H alpha, O3, and S2?
No, the L enhanced is H alpha, hydrogen beta, and O3.
Okay.
Yep. And it's interesting because a lot of people are like, well, the hydrogen beta is too close to the H alpha and stuff, but I've actually taken a picture of M27, the dumbbell, and actually separated all three of those channels. And there was a lot of information that was actually hidden into that hydrogen beta that I've not seen before. So it actually made the image really more impressive, because you can combine that hydrogen beta and the O3 and get your natural colors and stuff, but you'll also get a lot of the other data that's hidden in there that you don't see in the other two channels.
I see.
Something else that you were talking earlier about how people want to see things and how they process their images. People have to realize that the Hubbell palette is a false image or false color image.
Yeah, that's correct. It's
because you're mapping something that you maybe not conceive into the visual space.
Yep, and if you map them in order, the hydrogen alpha to the red channel, the S2 to the green, and the O3 to the blue, you get some funny colors off that. You don't get those golds and stuff. You end up with some really weird, because the S2 is actually a deeper red channel than what the hydrogen alpha is itself. So when you map those separately, you get all these different details. That's why when you go into the Hubbell palette, you put that S2 as the red, the HA is the green, and the O3 is the blue. Now, unfortunately, with the HA being the most powerful of all three of those you have to mute that color. You have to tone that down. Otherwise, you get a big bright green image. So you'll see a lot of that for those who are just now getting into narrowband processing. They show, hey, I got this great image, and you'll see a lot of greens, but not a lot of the other colors, because it's just that hydrogen alpha is very overpowering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ron Delvaux comments. He says, way back in the early days, or he's asking a question, did any of you ever try deep sky with Alt-Az and tried to derotate the data? I did manually. I was, we're using the LX200. I had it set up in Alt-Az, and I wanted to see if you could do deep sky imaging. Now, mind you, I was using an ST4 to do deep sky imaging back then. It was the early camera was pretty noisy, and so there was a lot of work trying to get an image. But eventually, Meade developed a field derotator, and it worked out pretty good, So and there are other systems that are out there for really, kind of advanced. But I think probably the best way to go is with the German equatorial or a fork equatorial. Learn how to do your polar alignment so you don't have to do that field derotating, because you're going to lose a lot of the image if you're trying to correct for that.
Yep, that's correct. I've used that field derotator, and I found you cannot go vertically overhead with certain size scopes. The 8-inch would not do it. The 10s and 14s could, but not with that 8-inch. I was like, darn it.
Couldn't keep up with it. Right.
So, but yeah, that was one of those. I got it 2 weeks later. I sold it because I decided just to buy the actual equatorial portion for that, or the wedge, next to put it on a super wedge, which is funny. 8-inch on a super wedge is kind of interesting.
Sure. Looks like you have the Veil Nebula here.
Yeah, this is, I believe, the Western Veil and stuff.
It's beautiful.
That L-Enhanced does really well with the Veil Nebula. I mean, it brings out all the details and colors and all the tendrils that show up. It controls the very bright star here as well, which is a lot of images when you get them. Just in LRGB, you have to do shorter exposures to keep that well controlled. But I'm shooting 10-minute subs on this, and that star never got any bigger than that.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Then we have the other side, the opposite end of it, and this is one of my favorite ones of them.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to get Pickering's triangle in the middle of that, but it's such a large field. I'm going to have to mosaic it in order to get the rest of this nebula cluster brought in. So
superb.
Oh, fun one. A lot of people like the Cygnus Wall. It's always interesting because people are wondering if the dust in front of it, does the nebula go back behind it, or is this a dark spot that we're looking past the red nebula, back behind it? And I've seen one narrowband image that was like over 100 hours long. And when you see it in the totality of the whole NGC 7000 in the North American Nebula, it looks like this dust cloud is enveloping the red, or the reflected nebula and stuff like that, and it makes it look like it's in a little cocoon or a little bubble.
Wow. I really enjoy this image. This is all the dark nebulosity. I imagine there's a lot of star forming, star birth going on in this region.
Yeah, it's interesting watching it. I love the contrast between the lights and darks in it, and the information that you can see in it. There's a lot of times that you'll see a bright nebula and it's really great, but when you start getting into the tendrils of these dark lanes that cover over areas, it's like, wow, that's impressive. Now what's behind it? Your mind goes, what's behind it? What can we see that's there? Or what's not there? And it kind of plays tricks on you sometimes.
Right.
Do you find certain ways to process these images to make them look more three-dimensional? I've seen some images that really pop out at you that are three-dimensional kind of feeling.
I have seen those, and a lot of times they'll use there's a couple of programs that can make them those 3D images where it's like almost a stereogram type. I've never gotten into playing around with it. There's other ways where you can actually take and separate it based on the highlights, the contrasts, and then separate those and create 3 different layers and then pull them apart. Never actually done that. I've got too many other things in the fire to deal with that. I've seen people spend 6 hours on image processing, and I don't even want to know what that 3D processing for that would be like if they actually got into making it look like that. So, yeah, it'd be interesting, though, to see what that'd look like in an actual 3D true environment.
Right, right.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see if we
Wide
have
field.
more comments here. I think some people want us to do this coaching situation, so we'll do that. Gary Palmer up in the UK is saying it's not dark here till midnight and a bit blue to the north all night long. That makes it tough.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Richard Grace is saying the weather here has never been so wrong since I started this hobby. That's right. Yeah.
I think if you were a solar
Mother
observer,
Nature.
if you were a
Oh,
solar
yeah.
observer, no sunspots, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
for like a year. Oh, there's nothing going on.
That's
you know?
right.
So,
Peter,
it's one of those things.
Peter Visima wants to know what latitude you're at.
We're at 37 degrees.
37?
That's about where we're at. We're at 38 in 20 minutes.
Oh, no, I think the question really was for Gary Palmer. 52 degrees north. Yeah, that's going to make a
52. Yeah,
That's
you're
gonna make-
way up there, eh?
Yeah.
Where it's
Ansel
colder all the
Puri
time.
is commenting on our conversation about colors and what's real, what's not real. He said perception is reality. So there we go.
Yep.
Wolfgang says today we have clouds here all day, but at all the day it was clear clouds now. Okay, but it's cloudy at this point, or clear. It was clear. What else? Richard Grace says, I have to get this one soon. I'm using the L-Enhance.
Hey, if you've got the L-Enhance and you've got the ability to do it, take 10-minute subs with that. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah. And Edwin Sanchez is wanting to know, if you like to do galaxy shots too.
Galaxies, that's one of those things, they come and go. They're kind of in between seasons. Really, if I'm going to do galaxy shots, I want to get an RC6 or a larger scope that I can really get that, because wide field on galaxies, you lose a lot of the detail in the galaxy structure itself. And I've gotten to the point that, I mean, the 102, if I'm taking pictures of M33 or some of the larger galaxy clusters, they're great. But in order to get the detail and the depth for a lot of it, you need a longer focal length to get there and have the clarity and stuff. So I like to shoot galaxies, just not as much as I like to shoot all the pretty objects that everybody goes, ooh, that's great. A lot of colors and stuff and a lot of neat things.
Do you like planetary nebula, like the Ring Nebula?
I like to shoot the planetary nebulas and stuff. The one that I still haven't shot yet and I need to is the Cat's Eye.
Right.
I keep forgetting that's up right now, and fortunately, you're going to need a lot longer focal length, so I may have to go off-site to our remote location out at Grand Mesa Observatory and use one of the bigger scopes that I have access to maybe get that.
Right. Let's talk about this image that you have up right now.
Yeah, this is the Wizard's Nebula. It's really impressive, not only in just the RGB color. This is taken with the L-Enhance, but processed more along the standard RGB. And it's really impressive when you get it actually in the narrow band false color. There's a lot of teal colors that show up and some golds and other things like that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful image. I'm curious. I mean, I always like to ask astronomers this, okay? What is it that you see these images, about distance and scale, and you learn about all these things. But what is it that what really drives your imagination? What makes you continue? You've been doing astrophotography since you were a kid. Is it a feeling of discovery? Is it an adventure of exploring? Is it can you even put it into words?
And there's a lot that goes into it. For me personally, it's that thrill of the capture. I can keep trying and keep trying. I've shot this object, I don't know, probably 200 or 300 times. And each time I shoot it, I get something different. I was like, well, okay, is it better? Is it worse? So I keep going for that thrill of the chase, the thrill of that capture of one of these days, I'm going to capture it where everybody's like, wow, that is just absolutely phenomenal. Can I get a print?
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. So what is your, what's your next, what's on your horizon? What are you going to be imaging next?
Well, hopefully I'll be able to finish up. I want to finish up some of the Cygnus area. I'd like to actually do a whole mosaic of that entire Cygnus area to get all that hydrogen alpha data that's out there. Just never sat down to do it. I'll probably end up doing a wide field camera like the 105 millimeter f2.8 camera lens that I've got. Put that on there and just shoot wide field with narrow band and probably do it in the narrow band palette like I've seen a lot of others do. Just something I've never done in my life is to be able to have the ability to do that, because if you took it by film, you would have to make sure that you got it right and that all those, when you go to print them, that they all line up properly.
Sure.
But now with the new software, I can plot it out in Sequence Generator Pro and actually show what I want and what the overlay is, and it will do all that for me. And then it's just a matter of processing it and printing it and, working on things like that.
Sure. There's a few more comments and questions here. Ansel Puri says, great images. Just curious, how many years did it take you to reach this level of astrophotography to figure out all the optimal equipment?
Well, I started when I was 8 years old, and I'm in my early 40s now, so a long time. And I'm still not to where I want to be. There's a lot more that I want to learn. There's more things that I keep finding. And that's the neat thing about having the large community of astronomers and photographers that we have, is because it doesn't matter if they're new or if they've been in it for 50 years. You always learn something new from one person to the next. And that knowledge that you have, you get to share with everybody else. So it's one of those things. It's not one of those, hey, I just woke up yesterday and I learned how to do this in 24 hours. And now I'm a, bigwig professional astronomer getting paid lots of money. No, it's taken a long time to do it. And of course, being an astronomer, we don't get clear skies all the time. I think I figured it up once. I had 33 clear skies throughout the entire year that were acceptable.
Yeah.
Because it was that season where we had really bad winter and really nasty wet summer. It's great.
I remember.
The solar astronomers loved it because we had sunspots galore. But the rest of us, we didn't like it because if it was clear, it was a full moon and hazy and nasty and just,
right.
That's why I do science imaging, because it's not near as
demanding.
It's tough. It's a different tool set. It's a different skill set, but it's not quite as to get world class like you are. It's not quite that tough with just taking data off of an image and getting. In fact, we don't care about seeing too much. That's one aspect of doing, science imaging.
Yep. We're out. A lot of us are out for the pretties, all the really cool stuff just to see. And it's neat because there's a lot of times I'll go and I was like, I never knew that object existed. And it's like, wow, I've been imaging this area for years. And then you stumble across a little tiny area that you never knew was there until you accidentally got a hold of it. And you're like, oh, eureka,
That's a personal discovery moment. That's what I call it. It's you're not discovering something for the first time for humanity, but you're discovering it for yourself for the first time, which is exciting.
Sure.
Yes. There's an area in Cygnus next to Deneb, and I believe it's to the western edge. There's a little nebula there. I never knew was there until just the last couple of years I discovered it, and it's a really great narrowband object, but I never knew it was there. And it was funny because when I started using SkyTech X and I discovered all the stuff in that, that's when I discovered all those objects that aren't, you hear people talk about, but you never knew were there. The propeller nebula up in Cygnus and things like that. But, I spent 20, 30 years photographing the skies, never knew it was there.
Right.
So it's interesting when you find new things, you're like, wow, now I got to go do that.
Right. Dave Ing says, I just received my L enhanced filter, using it with a DSLR on my ED102. What current targets would you suggest?
I would start off with a lot of the bright objects just so that you can get used to that. M8, which is the Lagoon Nebula, the Eagle Nebula, the Swan Nebula, all that stuff that's down in Sagittarius. If you can reach that area and get a lot of those, it's really great because you don't have to go long exposure to get those, 2 or 3 minutes at the most, and you'll get a lot of detail and a lot of color out of it. Just remember that when you go to process these images, it's going to be a little bit different. You'll start to end up with a little bit more green cast because you are picking up that hydrogen alpha color, which appears to be a green cast on these one-shot colors. Easy to process out, whether it's in Photoshop. You can just adjust those color balances the way you want them to get the colors that you want. So,
okay. And then Bob Runyon, he says, to paraphrase, astrophotography imaging is not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. He says, great work, Robert Weiss. So
yeah, that's my buddy up in Nebraska and stuff. He's the guy that usually logs into my system when he's bored and he's sitting at home watching TV. He's like, man, it's snowing or it's raining. And I'm like, well, we got 70-degree temperature here. You got 4 feet of snow. So come and see what I'm doing. So a lot of times I'll just let him have it and let him play around and see what he likes to do. So.
All right. Wolfgang wants to know, he says, are there some databases where you can download the raw photos and finish it at the PC? You can do that with the Hubbell data,
yes.
Right? You can get the raw Hubbell data and do that.
Oh, yeah.
And there's guys
I think
that do
the
that.
ESO has some, the Hubbell data. There's some also IR stuff out there, but I can't remember the exact website, but if you Google it, you can actually go on and download all those data sets to play around with. And it's really interesting because a lot of people have processed them in such a way that they've actually won an APOD award for it.
Sure.
Because they're,
and
there's a lot of data sets
that
NASA and everybody else has never been able to process that they're like, here you go, have fun with it.
Right.
So.
Right. Richard Grace says he has a 10-inch carbon Macnute. Wow. That doesn't weigh 40 pounds and could light a full frame sensor. A 10-inch carbon Macnute that doesn't weigh 40 pounds. Oh, that's what he wants. It's a wish. Yeah. Good luck with that, Richard. Let's see. And I think that we're kind of towards the end of our show here. If anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and ask them. But we're towards the end of our program. We've been on for, good Lord, about an hour and 40 minutes, which is one of our longer programs. I do appreciate you all hanging out with us. We will try to figure out some real imaging sessions and have one of you on the show with us to go along and start to learn the process of making some great deep sky images. Do you guys have anything more to wrap up the program with? No?
Jerry, you got anything?
No, I just
all talked out.
There's a as you can see from the discussion, there's a huge range of things you can do with astrophotography. It's just whatever objects, and it's typically you learn that whatever objects you really are interested in, those are the ones you're going to tune your system to do imaging for. You'll learn that after a while. But to train on a system, you need to really get a general purpose introductory system to learn on. You don't have to spend $8,000-$10,000 to learn this hobby.
No, that's right.
We offer mounts and you can use your DSLR like Robert said, and do a lot of excellent work with just a small system.
Yep.
Yeah, that IXOS 100 is excellent for digital SLR imaging and stuff because it's portable, it's easy to set up, and it's a great grab-and-go mount.
Yep. Well, I really appreciate you, Robert, for coming on the show with us today, and you too, Jerry, for really going through the MSRO, and all of the people that are watching the program. It's great to have you on. You guys always put up some great comments and questions. We love it. This show is being simulcast on YouTube. So you can go to the Explore Scientific official channel on YouTube. You can go to @Explore Scientific USA on Facebook, and on Explore, I think it's Explore CS on Twitter, the Periscope broadcast, and you can watch it. We save all these shows on those channels, and so if you missed anything, give it a watch, and keep watching our program. We'll be back on Monday with more. So take care, and good night.
Thank you.
Have a good one. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Robert. Bye-bye.